Everybody loves a good story, whether the tale is told through a book, the stage, the silver screen, or even just around a campfire. People from all walks of life cherish their stories. A good story, a well-told story, speaks to us about the things that matter most. They don't just delight and entertain, they remind us of our history and our identity, enlightening us to the truth, inspiring us to virtue, and setting our hearts aflame. The best stories tell of action and adventure, true love, the battle between good and evil, heroic self-sacrifice, victory snatched from the jaws of defeat, life out of death, and happily ever after. Even more, the best stories draw us in. We laugh and we cry along with the characters. We get scared when they are in danger, and we cheer when they are victorious. The best stories make us want to join in, make us long to take part in the play. Our universal love for stories makes sense, of course, because it is built in, part of who we are as human beings. As J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, once observed, we are made in the image and likeness of God, and God is the great storyteller. The story which God is telling is the story of salvation history, the sacred quest to rescue the human race from sin and death through His chosen people, and most especially through His only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. The story of the Bible, and in particular the Gospel, has everything: action and adventure, true love, the battle between good and evil, heroic self-sacrifice, victory snatched from the jaws of defeat, life out of death, and happily ever after. That is why we call it the greatest story ever told. Even more, the God story has the distinct advantage of being real, of being true in every sense of the word. That is why C.S. Lewis, a good friend of Tolkien and a fellow author, called the Gospel the true myth. It has everything our heart desires from a good story, and it affects our hearts in the same way as in any other good story, but it is also really and historically true. Best of all, this story also invites us to take part. We each have a role to play in salvation history, written for us by the sacred author. We simply need to discover what the role is and then have the courage to live it out. This is the act of vocational discernment. In prayer, we go to the sacred author to discover our role in the story he is telling. We turn to him in prayer, seeking to become the person he has made us to be, seeking to live out that special calling for which he has written us into existence. Some are called to marriage, to give of themselves totally and completely for the good of another, reflecting the love between Christ and His bride, the church. Some are called to be deacons, to serve the church in a unique way, proclaiming the gospel in word and deed. Some are called to become religious, men and women who dedicate their lives to Christ through the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Some are called to the priesthood, to serve God's people as a holy minister of the altar, a faithful preacher of the gospel, and a loving shepherd of souls. Maybe you have already discerned your vocation and embraced the role which God has written for you. Maybe you are still trying to discover it. Whatever the case may be, God is inviting all of us to take part in His sacred quest, to become part of the story of salvation history which He is writing. But first, we must have the courage to ask, what is your will for me? What role have you written for my life? Remember, though, there are no small roles, no bit parts. Every vocation has something to offer, something to contribute to God's sacred story.